As a leader, I think the difference for me between someone who's good and someone who's great, two things. The first is domain knowledge. For me, that's development and security. You can have leaders who don't have deep domain experience, but the less you have, the more you need to depend on others to make sure you're making the right calls at the right moment. And that, of course, raises the importance of listening to the right people. And that brings me to sort of the second point, which is you have to be able to positively identify those right people. You have to be able to tell the difference between a true expert and someone who's merely great at projecting self-confidence. And along with that, you have to be willing to hire people smarter than you.
The profession right now is much more about the people. It's the team that you hire. And so I think the CISOs, the CSOs that are going to stand out are those that can build a program that's sustainable and that's lasting. And if you look at tenure, the tenure in these roles is not very long. And so have you built something that when you do have to leave or get the opportunity to leave for another role, they can kind of continue along that path and just continue maturation without a reset every time that happens?
I think the person that's outstanding can relate and can tell a story. Difficult to explain certain technical terms to senior leaders, right? For example, like vulnerabilities, patches. That sometimes it's just very technical in nature. So I think the person that's outstanding can actually talk the talk, right? We're basically not using those acronyms in a way that they can actually tell a story how that's relates to the business. I think that's what makes somebody outstanding, and you can actually really understand what is the impact, what is the risk to their organization. Because if you start throwing jargons and people at business, right, business, they would not understand those technical terms. So I think that's what makes somebody that's outstanding is actually can relate a story.
I would say, the most important characteristic for someone that's outstanding in the role is for that person to be a translator. Or maybe a better way to think of it is that person needs to be multilingual, all right? Because you have to be able to engage at lots of different levels within the organization. And the language that you use, the frame of reference is going to be different. And so I think the most successful CISOs are the ones that can operate across these multiple different levels and communicate differently at each level.
The people that I look at that are outstanding end up having a very good combination of technical skills and soft skills. It's very easy to say, no, you can't do that. It's much more difficult to say, here's how I would approach that problem.
The difference between someone who is good versus outstanding is really that one who flexes their curiosity and their passion for their job. And by flexing that curiosity, I mean one who pushes the envelope beyond the norm. To me, that is the difference between a good cybersecurity professional and an excellent one. They don't take no for an answer, and they leverage everything within their tool belt in order to solve the problem.
I think the other thing for really good CISOs is it's not about being secure. It's about being as secure as possible in support of a business objective. I can make my business much more secure and bankrupt it, or I can help my business be the most successful in its industry with the right balance of security. And so I think you have to evolve from being a purist to being someone who understands the context in which you're operating.
To be outstanding, you've got to understand both the technology and the business side. Understanding that you are there to protect, but you are also there to empower. Don't want to say no too often. When somebody comes and says, this is what we need to do, the business is headed here, instead of just saying no, it's saying, this is how we're going to get there. So you're partnering, you're building bridges. In order to be successful, in order to be great, you have to be seen as that business partner.
And the folks that are outstanding are the ones that have taken a very, very deliberate approach to be approachable, but be more collaborative and build those relationships. And so, there's a very deliberate attempt. I'm a big guy and deep voice, so I can intimidate people, but to try and not be intimidating and work with people, because one of the things that security people are known for is, well, they're always going to say no. And I think the way that you start to do that is to soften it a little bit.
You have to be able to relate to people, and people want to talk to other people. They don't want to, just have a person who's always going to say yes, a person who's always going to say no. They want to be able to explain. They want to know that you're listening. They want to know that you care. They want to know that they were heard. And then that something's going to happen on the backside of it. Are you able to work with people? And are you able to engage with the business and really influence the business, help the business to understand the impact of some of the decisions that are going to be made? And if we do this, we're likely to run into this issue. If we don't do this, we're likely to run into this issue.
Someone who is great as a cybersecurity professional is someone who is compliant, right? They can check all the boxes. They can say they've done all the steps. They can say that they have all the policies written. They have a wonderful security program. They've never had an intrusion. They've never had a data breach. Someone who is great are the people who admit that they have had a breach, but they learned from it. They admit that they have made mistakes, but they've learned from it. Or who admit that they don't know everything. They can't possibly know everything. So, although you may have all of your ducks in a row, you still recognize that everything could fall apart tomorrow. And that is really what makes a great cybersecurity person, is the person who is not satisfied, the person who is always preparing for the next event, and who is not sitting back and being proud of what they've done in the past.